The impossible discovery. Captain Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the viewport of the Phoenix Rising, her dark eyes scanning the debris field that stretched 4 kilometers through space. After 15 years of salvage operations, she had developed an instinct for valuable wreckage, and this field was different. The twisted metal fragments bore the distinctive scorch marks of plasma weapons, but the whole composition was unlike anything she had encountered in Nexari space. "Tank, are you seeing this?" Elena called to her chief engineer, who was hunched over a scanning console that appeared to be held together with metal tape and determination. Marcus Tank Williams was a mountain of a man whose scarred hands could coax life from the most hopeless machinery. He had earned his nickname during the Outer Colony Wars, where he had kept their unit's vehicles running with nothing but spare parts and sheer stubbornness. Tank looked up from his instruments, his weathered face creasing into a frown. "Captain, these readings don't make sense. The metal composition shows traces of titanium steel alloy, but the energy signature suggests technology that's at least 50 years more advanced than standard Nexari construction." Dr. Sarah Chen moved away from her xenobiology station, her petite frame contrasting sharply with Tank's bulk. She had joined the Phoenix's crew after her research grant was terminated for proposing that alien technology could be successfully integrated with human systems. The academic community had called her theories impossible, but Elena had hired her precisely because she thought differently than everyone else. "The debris pattern suggests a battle," Sarah observed, studying the scattered wreckage through her portable analyzer. "But look at how some of these fragments are fused together. It's almost like someone tried to repair battle damage using completely different metal types." Navigator Alex Santos glanced up from his pilot station, his young face brightening with curiosity. At 24, Alex was the youngest member of the crew, but his ability to plot courses through dangerous space had saved them more times than Elena could count. "Captain, I'm detecting larger debris signatures about 2 clicks to starboard. Whatever happened here, that's where the main event took place." Elena nodded, her military training automatically assessing the tactical situation. The Phoenix Rising was deep in Nexari space, technically operating under a salvage treaty that most Nexari commanders chose to ignore when dealing with human vessels. They were alone, lightly armed, and surrounded by the wreckage of what appeared to be a significant battle. "Take us in slowly, Alex. Tank, I want full sensor sweeps on everything larger than a shuttle. Sarah, keep monitoring for any alien communication frequencies. If there are survivors in this debris field, I want to know about them before they know about us." The Phoenix Rising moved through the wreckage like a predator stalking prey, its hull scarred from countless salvage operations. The ship was a testament to human engineering philosophy, where other species built vessels according to precise specifications and standardized components. Humans built ships that could be repaired with whatever materials were available. The Phoenix's hull showed patches from dozens of different metal types, welded together in patterns that would horrify any conventional shipwright, but had kept the vessel operational for over 20 years. Tank's sensors began detecting larger debris signatures, and what they found made Elena's breath catch in her throat. Floating in the center of the debris field was the remains of what had once been a massive vessel, icily 3 times the size of any ship in the human fleet. But the construction was wrong. Instead of the smooth, organic curves that characterize Nexari vessels, this wreckage showed the angular, practical design philosophy that Elena recognized from human military ships. "That's impossible," Alex whispered, staring at the scanner. display. There's no human vessel that large in any of our databases. Sarah was running detailed scans on the wreckage, her analyzer producing readings that made her shake her head in confusion. The metal composition is definitely human, but the technology integration shows components from at least 6 different alien species. Whoever built this ship was using salvaged technology from across the galaxy. Alina felt a chill run down her spine as she realized what they were looking at. The wreckage wasn't just from a human ship. It was from a human ship that had been built using the same scavenger engineering philosophy that kept the Phoenix Rising operational, but on a scale that suggested capabilities far beyond what anyone believed humans possessed. Tank, are there any intact sections we can examine more closely? Alina asked, though part of her was beginning to suspect that they had stumbled onto something far more dangerous than a simple salvage operation. Before Tank could respond, Alex's navigation console began beeping urgently. "Captain, I'm detecting incoming vessels. 3 ships, definitely Nexari configuration, approaching fast from bearing 2 Savan Mark." Elena's military instincts kicked in immediately. "How much time do we have?" 8 minutes until they're in weapons range, Alex replied, his hands already moving over the navigation controls to plot potential escape routes. "Sarah, any communication from the incoming vessels?" Sarah adjusted her communication array, listening to the alien frequencies that most humans couldn't distinguish from static. After a moment, her face paled. "They're broadcasting on military channels, Captain, and they're not happy. I'm picking up references to human scavengers and illegal salvage operations." Alina made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fleeing immediately, she chose to investigate further. "Tank, can you get any more detailed scans of that large wreckage section before we have to run?" Tank's massive hands moved over his control panel with surprising delicacy. "Give me 3 minutes, Captain, but I'm seeing some very strange energy signatures from what looks like intact systems." The next few minutes passed in tense silence as Tank worked his scanning equipment and Alex calculated escape routes. Sarah monitored the approaching Nexari vessels, which were broadcasting increasingly hostile messages about human violations. "Of Nexari space." "Got it," Tank announced, but his voice carried a note of disbelief. "Captain, that wreckage contains intact power distribution systems that show energy, absorption, and redirection capabilities. The engineering is crude, all salvaged components welded together with basic techniques, but the theoretical performance specifications exceed anything in our databases." Alina stared at the scanner readings, trying to process what Tank was telling her. Someone had built a human vessel using salvaged alien technology, and that vessel had possessed capabilities that challenged everything the galaxy believed about human engineering capabilities. "Time's up," Alex announced. "Nexari vessels will be in weapons range in 60 seconds. Alina was about to give the order to retreat when something made her pause. The Phoenix Rising was equipped with its own collection of salvaged systems, modifications, that Tank had made over the years to improve their performance and survival capabilities. What if those modifications were more significant than she had realized? "Tank, how confident are you in our current defensive modifications?" Tank looked at her with surprise. "Captain, you know as well as I do that we've never tested them against military-grade weapons. Everything I've installed was designed for asteroid deflection and debris collision protection. But theoretically, based on what you've just scanned from that wreckage, how might our systems perform?" Tank was quiet for a moment, his engineering mind working through possibilities that he had never seriously considered. Theoretically, Captain, if the energy absorption principles I've been using are similar to what was installed on that destroyed vessel, we might be able to survive an initial attack. But I emphasize might. The Nexari vessels dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their sleek hulls gleaming with the advanced materials and precise construction that characterize their military technology. The lead vessel immediately targeted the Phoenix Rising with its weapons systems. "Human vessel, you are in violation of Nexari territorial space," came the transmission in accented Galactic standard. "Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Alina opened a communication channel, her voice steady despite the situation they faced. "This is Captain Alina Vasquez of the salvage vessel Phoenix Rising. We are operating under the Galactic Salvage Treaty of 2387. The wreckage we are investigating shows no current Nexari territorial markers." The response was swift and hostile. "Human Captain, the wreckage you are attempting to salvage contains technology that poses a security risk to Nexari interests. Withdraw immediately or be fired upon." Alina looked at her crew, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. They had spent years salvaging the unwanted remains of alien technology, building their ship and their lives from the discarded pieces of more advanced civilizations. Now they faced a choice between retreat and standing their ground against impossible odds. Tank, bring all of our modified systems online. Sarah, record everything. If we don't make it out of this, someone needs to know what happened here. Alex, if things go badly, I want you to plot a course straight through that debris field. Maximum speed. Tank's hands moved over controls that activated systems he had built from salvaged components over the course of years. Power flowed through distribution networks that violated every principle of conventional engineering, but which had kept the Phoenix running, operational through situations that should have destroyed them. The lead Nexari vessel fired a warning shot, a low-powered energy beam that struck the Phoenix's starboard hull. Alina watched in amazement as Tank's jury-rigged systems absorbed the energy and somehow redistributed it through the ship's power grid. Instead of causing damage, the alien weapon had actually boosted their power reserves. "That shouldn't be possible," Sarah whispered, staring at the power readings. Tank was grinning like a madman as he watched his systems perform beyond every theoretical limit he had calculated. "Captain, I think we need to have a serious conversation about what we've been flying around in all these years." The Nexari commander was apparently as surprised as Elena's crew by the Phoenix's response to their weapons fire. "Human vessel, explain your defensive capabilities immediately." Alina made a decision that would echo through the galaxy for years to come. Instead of explaining or apologizing, she chose to demonstrate the true nature of human engineering philosophy. "Tank, give me everything we've got. Sarah, broadcast on all frequencies. I want everyone in this system to hear what I'm about to say." Alina opened a system-wide communication channel, her voice carrying across space to reach anyone within listening range. "This is Captain Alina Vasquez of the human vessel Phoenix Rising. We are not leaving. We are not surrendering. And we are not afraid of your superior technology." The Nexari commander's response was predictably hostile. "Human arrogance will be your destruction. All vessels, open fire." 3 Nexari military vessels unleashed their weapons arrays at the Phoenix Rising, energy beams and plasma charges that should have reduced the human salvage ship to expanding clouds of debris. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Tank's salvaged and jury-rigged defensive systems didn't just absorb the incoming energy. They somehow amplified it and redirected it back at the attacking vessels with twice the original power. The returned fire struck the Nexari ships simultaneously, overloading their shields and causing significant damage to their hulls. In the stunned silence that followed, Elena's voice carried across the communication channels with quiet confidence. "We are human. We don't build things the way you do because we can't build things the way you do. But what we can do is take your discarded technology and make it work better than you ever imagined possible." The battle had only just begun, but already the galaxy was beginning to realize that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't superior technology or overwhelming force. It was the absolute refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Asterisk. The Scavenger's Truth Admiral Korath received the emergency transmission while reviewing patrol schedules aboard his flagship, the Nexari dreadnought, Stellar Dominance. The message was brief but alarming. 3 military vessels had engaged a human salvage ship and suffered significant damage from redirected weapons fire. The tactical data attached to the report made no sense according to every principle of space combat doctrine he had studied in 40 years of military service. "Helm, set course for the engagement zone immediately," Korath commanded, his scaled features darkening with concern. Behind him, the bridge crew of the most advanced warship in the Nexari fleet moved with efficient precision, signaled the second and third battle groups. "I want 18 vessels converging on those coordinates within the hour." As the Stellar Dominance dropped into hyperspace, Korath studied the tactical reports from the initial engagement. A human vessel constructed from salvaged materials had somehow absorbed and redirected military-grade weapons fire. The engineering analysis suggested that such capabilities should be impossible using the crude materials and basic construction techniques that characterized human technology. Meanwhile, aboard the Phoenix Rising, Elena was trying to process what had just happened while Tank worked frantically to analyze their defensive system's performance. The 3 Nexari vessels had withdrawn to a safe distance, but their damaged hulls and overloaded power systems made it clear that the engagement had not gone as anyone had expected. "Captain, I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures," Alex announced from his navigation station. "Multiple large vessels incoming, at least 15, possibly more." Sarah looked up from her communication monitoring station, her face pale. "They're broadcasting on high-priority military channels. I'm picking up references to human threat assessment and unknown technology deployment." Elena realized that their situation had escalated far beyond a simple territorial dispute. The Nexari military was responding as if the Phoenix Rising represented a genuine threat to their security, which was both absurd and terrifying given the disparity in forces. "Tank, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. How are our systems performing these impossible functions?" Tank wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied readouts from systems he had built but never fully understood. "Captain, remember when I installed those energy distribution matrices last year? I salvaged them from that destroyed Nexari science vessel we found near the Centauri debris field. The ones you said would improve our power efficiency." "Right, but I think they're doing more than that. See, when I connected them to our main power grid, I had to bridge the connections using components from 3 different species technology. The Nexari matrix, some Hellion capacitor arrays we salvaged 2 years ago, and human-manufactured power couplers that were never designed to handle alien energy frequencies." Sarah leaned forward, her scientific training allowing her to follow Tank's explanation. "You're saying that the combination of incompatible technologies is somehow creating new capabilities?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. The energy absorption and redirection isn't happening because of any single system. It's happening because all these different technologies are interacting in ways that no one ever intended or designed. Alina stared at Tank in amazement. You're telling me that our defensive capabilities exist because you don't know enough about alien technology to use it properly? Tank grinned, his scarred face creasing with pride. Captain, I've been telling you for years that the best way to fix something is to use whatever parts you have available and see what happens. Apparently, what happens is better than anyone imagined. The conversation was interrupted by Alex's urgent announcement. Incoming vessels dropping out of hyperspace now. 18 ships, including what looks like a Dreadnought-class flagship. Alina watched through the viewport as the Nexari battle fleet deployed in perfect formation around the debris field. The stellar dominance was easily 10 times the size of the Phoenix Rising, its hull gleaming with advanced armor and bristling with weapon systems that could level entire cities. Human vessel, came Admiral Korath's transmission, his voice carrying the authority of absolute military command. I am Admiral Korath of the Nexari Defense Fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to boarding for technology assessment, or you will be destroyed. Alina looked at her crew, seeing determination rather than fear in their faces. They had spent years working together, salvaging what others had discarded and building something meaningful from the remains of more advanced civilizations. Now they faced a moment that would define not just their own fate, but potentially humanity's place in the galaxy. Tank, how much power do we have stored from their earlier attack? About 3 times our normal maximum capacity, Captain. The absorption systems are still processing energy from the first engagement. Alex, can you plot a course that takes us through the densest part of the debris field? Alex's fingers danced over his navigation controls, calculating trajectories that would have been suicide for any conventional vessel. I can get us through the wreckage, but at the speeds we'll need to maintain, any collision will tear us apart. Unless our hull modifications work the same way our defensive systems do, Alina mused. Sarah, open a channel to the entire Nexari fleet. Alina stood in the center of her bridge, surrounded by equipment that looked like it had been assembled in someone's garage, facing a fleet of vessels that represented the peak of Nexari military technology. When she spoke, her voice carried the confidence of someone who had spent her entire life making impossible things work. Admiral Korath, this is Captain Alina Vasquez. We are not surrendering, and we are not leaving. What you're about to witness is the fundamental difference between how your people approach technology and how humans approach technology. Korath's response was predictably hostile. Human arrogance ends now. All vessels, maximum firepower. Target their engines and weapon systems for capture if possible, but destroy them if necessary. 18 Nexari warships opened fire simultaneously, creating a web of energy beams and plasma charges that should have overwhelmed any possible defensive system. The volume of firepower was sufficient to destroy entire planetary defense networks. Tank watched his instruments with fascination as the Phoenix's hull absorbed every joule of energy from the massive barrage. Captain, the absorption grid is handling the load better than I ever calculated. We're not just collecting their energy, we're somehow amplifying it through the interaction between different alien technologies. How much amplification? Alina asked as she watched the enemy fire being absorbed by their ship. Based on current readings, we're going to redirect about 5 times the energy they just fired at us. The Phoenix Rising suddenly blazed with absorbed energy as Tank activated the redistribution system. The returned fire struck the Nexari fleet. Like a hammer blow, causing massive shield failures and hull damage across multiple vessels. 3 ships were forced to withdraw immediately while others struggled to maintain power to essential systems. "Impossible," Admiral Korath whispered as damage reports flooded his command center. "No ship can absorb and amplify that volume of weapons fire." But Alina wasn't finished demonstrating human engineering philosophy. "Alex, take us into the debris field." Maximum acceleration. The Phoenix Rising suddenly accelerated at rates that should have been impossible for any vessel of its construction. The ship dove into the debris field like a fighter craft, weaving between wreckage fragments with precision that defied every principle of capital ship maneuvering. "How are we maintaining structural integrity at these acceleration rates?" Sarah asked, watching stress readings that should have indicated catastrophic hull failure. Tank was laughing with pure joy as he monitored their systems. "Because every modification I've made to this ship over the years has been about making it stronger and more flexible. The hull patches from different metal types, the reinforcement welds that don't follow standard patterns, the power distribution that routes through backup systems I installed from salvaged components. It all works together to make the ship perform better under stress instead of worse." Admiral Korath watched in growing amazement as the human vessel performed maneuvers that his own ships couldn't match despite possessing superior technology and more powerful engines. The Phoenix Rising was using the debris field itself as both cover and tactical advantage, collecting additional energy from ambient sources and somehow incorporating it into their defensive systems. "Sir, the human vessel is approaching our formation perimeter," reported Korath's tactical officer. "At their current acceleration rate, they'll reach our position in 4 minutes. They're not trying to escape," Korath realized. "They're attacking." The Phoenix Rising emerged from the debris field like an arrow shot from a bow, moving at velocities that should have torn any ship apart. But instead of disintegrating, the human vessel seemed to be getting more stable and more powerful. With each passing second, Alina opened a communication channel to the entire Nexari fleet. "This is what human engineering looks like, Admiral. We don't have your advanced materials, so we use materials that shouldn't work and make them work anyway. We don't have your sophisticated power systems, so we connect incompatible components until they create something better than either could achieve alone." The Phoenix Rising began weaving through the Nexari formation, not engaging individual ships, but demonstrating capabilities that challenged every assumption about human technology. The ship's chaotic construction and jury-rigged systems were revealing themselves to be features rather than flaws, advantages rather than limitations. "We don't follow your engineering principles because we don't know your engineering principles," Alina continued. "We just look at broken things and figure out how to make them work. And apparently, when you give humans access to technology from multiple advanced civilizations, we don't use it the way you intended. We use it the way that works." Suddenly, Alex's sensors detected new contacts dropping out of hyperspace. "Captain, I'm reading additional human vessels approaching. Multiple signatures, various configurations." Alina smiled as she recognized the sensor patterns. 3 more human ships had arrived, each one as unique and improvised as the Phoenix Rising. The salvage vessel Lucky Strike was commanded by Elena's old friend Captain Maria Santos. The research ship Curiosity was run by a team of human scientists who had been kicked out of the Galactic Research Council for their unconventional theories. The cargo hauler Second Chance was operated by a family of human traders who had spent decades modifying their ship with whatever technology they could acquire. "This is Captain Santos of the Lucky Strike. came Maria's familiar voice over the communication channel. "Alina, it looks like you've started quite a party without us." "Maria, perfect timing. I was just explaining to our Nexori friends how human engineering works. The 4 human vessels formed a loose formation that would have horrified any military tactician, but somehow allowed them to coordinate their movements with intuitive precision. Each ship bore the distinctive marks of human scavenger engineering, hull patches from multiple sources, asymmetrical modifications, and systems that clearly hadn't been designed to work together but somehow did anyway. Admiral Korath found himself facing something unprecedented in his military career. 4 human vessels with capabilities that shouldn't exist were demonstrating technologies that violated fundamental principles of physics and engineering. But they weren't just demonstrating those capabilities. They were explaining them in simple, practical terms that made their impossible achievements sound like common sense. Admiral Alina said, her voice now carrying the confidence of someone who had proven her point beyond any possible doubt. "We're not your enemies. We're scavengers. We take the things that other people throw away and we make them into something useful. The wreckage in this debris field, that was probably from the first human ship that tried to explore this region of space. They built it the same way we build all our ships, using whatever technology they could find and whatever materials were available." Alina paused, looking at the magnificent Nexari fleet that surrounded her small group of improvised vessels. "The difference between us and you isn't that we're more advanced. It's that we don't let anyone tell us what's impossible. When you gave up on those salvaged components, we took them and found ways to make them work better than they were originally designed to work." Admiral Korath realized that he was witnessing something that would change the galaxy's understanding of human capabilities. These weren't primitive scavengers operating crude vessels. They were engineers who had weaponized creativity itself, turning limitation into advantage and impossibility into opportunity. "Captain Vasquez," Admiral Korath said finally, his voice carrying newfound respect, "perhaps it is time for a more detailed conversation about human engineering capabilities and their implications for galactic security." Alina smiled, knowing that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in human-alien relations. "Admiral, I think you're going to find that conversation very interesting, especially when you realize that every human ship in the galaxy has been built using the same philosophy we've just demonstrated." The Phoenix Rising and her sister ships held position in space, their jury-rigged systems humming with power that had been donated by the most advanced military fleet in Nexari space. Around them, the wreckage of an ancient human vessel continued to drift through the void, a testament to the ingenuity and determination that had carried humanity to the stars. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength wasn't superior technology or overwhelming force. It was the simple, stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly broken beyond repair. And that philosophy, applied to the discarded technology of advanced civilizations, had created something far more dangerous than any weapon: the absolute certainty that there was always a way to make things work better than anyone had ever imagined possible. Asterisk.